Hey everyone, this is Roland here. Welcome and thank you for being here. And today I'm going to talk about the inadequacies and the insecurities that we have when we are walking in the path that God has called us to do, when we are pursuing His purpose and walking in His purpose. Because I don't know about you, but there are times where I feel inadequate and Lord, I'm not enough. And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do this? And why did you choose me? But that's all pretty normal. And we need to understand that. But even recently, as I was fighting those thoughts, and like God reminded me of a few things, and those are the things I would like to remind you of. So let's get into it, and it's just a few points. And the first thing He reminded me of that I want to remind you of is God's purpose for your life will always be infinitely greater than your current abilities and strength. And God's calling, when God calls you, in Isaiah, it says that His thoughts and His ways are far above our ways and thoughts. So when with His plans are so big that they can't be put in a little cute little box and can be managed and say, yeah, this is it. No, they're always going to be bigger than you. They're always going to be beyond you in your current capabilities and strengths. And that's why you need to trust Him for your calling, right? And then the next thing that I want to remind you of is that He knows very well that you are not able to accomplish His plan and purposes on your own. And this is so important because these inadequacies and insecurities come when we try in our own strength to do what God has called us to do. And when we fail, and when we in that arena where God has called us to do, we then try to do things on our own, and guess what? We fail. But we need to remember that we need the Lord to accomplish what He has called us to do. And then the last thing is that He wants you to trust Him wholeheartedly every step of the way, because that's the only way you can accomplish what He has called you to do. And I've already talked about this. But now the enemy, what he wants to do is he wants you to focus so much on your weaknesses that you disqualify yourself from God's calling, from God's purpose. And that's what Moses did. Remember, he nearly disqualified himself because of his inadequacies and his insecurities. And remember what happened. God came to him and called him. And instead of saying, yes, Lord, what did he do? He gave excuse after excuse, and he nearly disqualified himself. He nearly talked himself out of what God had for him because he thought he wasn't enough. But that's not why God called him. God called him because He loved him. God called him because of grace and mercy, and that's the same for you and me. So we don't need to rely on our own strength. And God hasn't called you because of where you were born, or of the school you went to, or how many degrees you have, or the family you came from, or the country you've come from, or the type or the color you are. No, He's called you because He loves you, because you are His son, because you are His daughter, and that He has a plan for you. And when those insecurities come, instead of trying to dive deeper and think it's because I am strong, it's because He called me because I'm clever or because I have something. No, go to Him with those insecurities and be honest with Him and tell Him those things that you're struggling about, because the Word says when we are weak, He is strong. So that is what I want to encourage you with, that pursue God's call for your life. But remember that you are enough, not because of what you have or because of how strong you are or whatever it is. It's because of God. It's because of Him calling you, because you are His. And when you understand that He's the power behind what you do, He's the only reason and only way you can accomplish what He has called you to do, then there is freedom, there is liberty. Then you don't have to talk yourself out of what God has called you to do. You don't have to be intimidated when God puts you in the place He has put you to do, because it's going to be scary. It's going to be huge. It's going to be beyond the knowledge that you have. It's going to blow your mind, right? And you're going to be wondering, where do I start? But you can only get through by trusting in the Lord. So with that, I've come to the end of this episode, and I will see you next week, and God bless.